Call to order this regular meeting of the Lincoln-Lancaster County Planning Commission of August 4th, 2021. A printed agenda is available outside the hearing room, and a copy of the full agenda, including the staff reports, is available at the front of the chambers with the clerk. The Open Meetings Act is posted just inside the doors at the back of the room. If you parked in the parking garage across the street to the north, the gate is open and no parking coupons are needed. Out of courtesy for those attending this meeting, the commissioners and the staff, cellular phone usage is not permitted in these chambers during any portion of this meeting. We appreciate your cooperation. Please note, the Planning Commission action today is final on the following items: 4.1, Special Permit 21025, and 4.2, Preliminary Plat 21002. Any aggrieved person may appeal final action of the Planning Commission to the City Council by filing a notice of appeal with the City Clerk within 14 days following the action of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission action on all other items is a recommendation to the City Council or County Board. The first item of business is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held July 21st, 2021.
So move, Campbell.
Second, Joy.
Jerry?
Okay, Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Raymond Yost?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
The next item of business on our agenda is the election of chair and vice chair for 2-year terms. Is there a nomination for chair?
I'd like to make a nomination for chair. But before I do that, I want to offer a word of thanks to you for the last 4 years of your service as vice chair and chair. Especially the last 2 years have been very kind of strenuous and not normal. And I just want to publicly acknowledge your service and dedication to our community. It's been really great.
Thank you.
So I would like to nominate Tracy Edgerton as chair for a 2-year term.
Are there any other nominations?
Move that nominations cease and we declare a unanimous ballot.
Okay, need a second.
Second, Ryman Yost.
Okay.
This is for Tracy Edgerton to serve as
Yes.
chair for a 2-year term. Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Raymond Yost?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
And Core?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Actually, I'll mark that as 6-0 with 1 abstention.
Can't vote on myself?
I know you're so anxious. Indeed, very anxious.
That's awesome. Like the only vote you can count on is yourself, right?
I left it right where she needed it.
Okay.
Steve Hendrickson with the Planning Department. While we're getting things switched around, on behalf of the department, we also very much want to second the thoughts of Dennis here. We really appreciate both Christy and Tracy. We threw a lot of loops at them, particularly in the last 16 months, and handled it very well. So on behalf of all the planning staff, thank you very much to both of you as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, is there a nomination for vice chair?
I would make the nomination of Cindy Raymond Yost as vice chair.
Okay, Cindy Raymond Yost. Are there any other nominations?
Oh, I'll second that.
Okay.
Core.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. If there are no other nominations, I think we can call the vote.
Okay. This is for Raymond Yost to serve as vice chair for the next 2 years, for a 2-year term. Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Raymond Yost?
Abstain.
Shear?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0.
Great. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
The next item of business is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda will be called at the same time and will not be scheduled for a separate public hearing unless there is a request from someone wishing to speak or at the request of a commission member. I will ask Jerry to read all of the consent agenda items into the record. Once these items are read, she will ask if there is anyone wishing to speak. If you wish to speak on an item on the consent agenda, we would ask that you stand and state that item. That item will then be removed from the consent agenda and scheduled as a separate public hearing under Section 3 of today's agenda. All items remaining on the consent agenda will be voted upon in total with a motion for approval. Jerry, will you please call the items on the consent agenda?
Yes, thank you. I would note that Commissioner Scheer has declared a conflict of interest on consent agenda items 1.1, which is changes on 08041C, 1.3, comprehensive plan conformance to 1015, and 1.4, comprehensive plan conformance to 1016, and will therefore abstain from taking action on these items, or on any of the consent agenda items. First item is item 1.1, changes zone 08041C to amend the existing Pine Woods planned unit development to revise the layout and mix of uses on property generally located at South 70th Street and Pine Lake Road. Item 1.2 is comprehensive plan conformance 21013 to review as to conformance with the 2040 Lincoln Lancaster County Comprehensive Plan. Two proposed amendments, the first to the Antelope Valley redevelopment plan and the second to the North 27th Street corridor and environs redevelopment plan, to identify the 23rd and Y Street redevelopment project generally located between North 23rd and North 24th Streets on the north side of Y Street. Item 1.3 is comprehensive plan conformance 21015 to review as to conformance with the 2040 Lincoln Lancaster Comprehensive Plan, an amendment to the Lead Place Residences redevelopment project, which is included as part of the Lincoln Center redevelopment plan to adjust the project boundary and TIF amount on property generally located at 1125 Q Street. Item 1.4 is comprehensive plan conformance 21016 to review as to conformance with the 2040 Lincoln Lancaster County Comprehensive Plan, a proposed amendment to the South Street redevelopment plan that identifies the Centerpoint South Street redevelopment project, including the redevelopment of the existing Traber Hall building to create a medical clinic, community services facility, and affordable housing on property generally located at 2202 South 11th Street. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on these items?
I don't think so.
Are there any ex parte communications that took place or additional information you learned while visiting these sites?
No.
Okay. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on any of these consent agenda items? If so, please stand and state that item, and we will remove it from the consent agenda for a separate public hearing.
Since there's none, we can entertain a motion.
I would move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
This is for the approval of the consent agenda. Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Ryman Yost?
Yes.
Scheer?
Abstain?
Edgerton?
Yes.
And Core?
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0.
I will now ask Jerry to call the requests for deferral.
Okay, we have received a written communication from the applicant of item 4.2, which is preliminary plat 21002 for 7 commercial lots on property generally located at 4731 West O Street. They are requesting a 2-week deferral, which would delay action and public hearing to the August 18th Planning Commission meeting. And I would also note that Commissioner Scheer has declared a conflict of interest on this application and will abstain from voting.
I move that we defer preliminary plat 21002 until August 18th, 2021.
Okay,
Second, Campbell.
okay. Is there anyone here, oh, I'm sorry, never mind. Ball,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Raymond Yost,
Yes.
Scheer,
Abstain?
Edgerton,
Yes.
and Core.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Now, is there anyone here wishing to speak on this application rather than waiting until the 18th? Okay, seeing none. I believe we will go to the next request for deferral. On behalf of the adjacent property owner of the application for change of zone 21024, which is a change from B1 local business district to H2 Highway Business District on property generally located at 4615 Vine Street. There is a request for an additional 2-week deferral of this matter, which would also delay it until August 18th. It is my understanding that the applicant has indicated that they are agreeable to this additional delay.
Move deferral until August 18th, 2021.
Second, Shear.
Shall go ahead and vote?
Okay. Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Ryman Yost?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0.
Is there anyone here wishing to speak on this application today? Okay,
Okay.
we will now proceed to public hearings. Prior to staff making a brief presentation, each staff person should state their name, agency, and address. The applicant will then be requested to present his or her testimony, followed by those who wish to testify in support, followed by those who wish to testify in opposition. The staff will then be given an opportunity to respond to the testimony, and then the applicant shall have an opportunity for rebuttal. Each person testifying should state their name and address and shall have 5 minutes to speak unless additional time is requested and granted. The timer will go off after 4 minutes. The clerk will then indicate you have 1 minute remaining to wrap up your testimony. Once the final minute has lapsed, the clerk will indicate that your time is up. If, during your testimony, you have copies of documents or materials you would like distributed to the Planning Commission members and/or included as part of the record, please provide them to the clerk. The Planning Commission will vote immediately at the close of the public hearing unless the Commission votes to defer action or continue the public hearing. Jerry, please call the first public hearing item.
Thank you. Item 4.1 is special permit 21025 to allow for a residential healthcare facility with up to 5 residents on property generally located at 3929 Lewis Avenue. This is final action on this item unless appealed to the City Council within 14 days. Staff recommendation is for conditional approval. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed?
No, I don't see any.
Are there any ex parte communications that took place or additional information you learned while visiting this site?
No. Rachel.
Okay.
Rachel Christopher, Planning Department, 555 South 10th Street. This is a request for a special permit for residential health care for assisted living with up to 5 residents and 1 staff person at a time. The location is currently a single-family home at 3929 Lewis Avenue. And I'll put up a slightly updated site plan. Based on the number of residents, the facility will have to meet the barrier-free design standards, and their required parking is able to be met using the 2-stall garage and the driveway north of the house. They're not proposing any major changes to the exterior of the house. The use is residential in nature, and we're anticipating traffic impacts will not be significant. With them providing parking on their own site, and the fact that comprehensive plan supports providing special needs housing within the character of surrounding land uses, staff is supporting the request. And there have been a few other examples around town of smaller residential healthcare facilities like this one. And in this case, based on review of the surrounding areas, we're anticipating the smaller scale and density will not cause negative impacts. So with that, I will take any questions you have for me.
She looks at me first because she knows. You know what? I guess most of my questions are for the applicants. You're off the hook, Rachel.
Okay.
Any questions for Rachel? Okay. Thank you. Applicant?
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Saif Saya. I'm 4 years old,
and I'm a certified CNA and medication aid. I have been planning actually for this project since 2015, and I got busy with my life and my family, and now I think I'm ready for it. Any question for me?
Yep, I got some.
Yes.
Are you gonna live on site?
No, I'm gonna live close by. I'm gonna rent an apartment for me and my family, and I'm gonna rent the facility.
Okay.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that all of the bathrooms are ADA accessible and,
Yes, we're gonna do all the requirement to meet all the codes.
okay.
Yes.
Now I noticed on your site plan that the one bedroom has 2 beds in it. Is that gonna be someone like a couple, or is that gonna be individual people just sharing a room, or?
That's the plan is, I worked with different facilities, and I saw that, there is siblings,
Okay.
married couples, friends, they would like to stay together.
Sure.
So that's part of a plan, if I run to couple people, this will be perfect because the room size is perfect for
Okay.
2 people.
Okay,
Yes.
great. We've had a couple of comments about a lot of cars parked around there and cars under repair. Can you kind of address that for us?
Well, I've been doing cars for part-time, okay, but I never had any problem actually because my driveway is good for 7 cars, plus I have 2-car garage, one neighbor right across from me has some issue with me. I never had any problem with him, but he has some issue with me. Okay. Just recently, for the past since 2015, I never had any complaint, any problem with any of my neighbors. Recently, he called the cops on me because my car was I parked my car on my side, but the other direction. When the police officer shows up, he's like, "I'm really sorry for this, but we had a complaint about it." I was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna put it in the right direction then." That's the only issue I ever had.
So when you're working on cars, do you work on them in the driveway mostly, or in the?
In my garage, on my driveway. I never bothered anybody. So from now on, after turning my house to a facility, I'm not gonna use it anymore for personal use. It's gonna be only for the facility.
And it will be just you providing the care for these residents?
I'm gonna hire 3 more CNAs. So it's
Okay.
gonna be 24/7.
Yes.
Yes, supervision.
Okay,
Yes.
great, thank you.
No problem. You're welcome.
So your application mentioned that you have 5, there'd be 5 residents?
Yes,
and then
up to 5.
1 staff person?
Yes.
So is there, and then the staff person, obviously, as you said, 24/7, but you're not necessarily anticipating that a staff person will live at site? They would just cover
yes, they will not.
evening or night shifts,
Yes,
but that
it
would.
will be 3 shifts, 6 to 2,
Sure.
okay, to cover 24 hours a day. But
Got it.
there will be no staffing living in the facility.
Understood.
Yes.
Any other questions for the applicant? Dick?
I would assume that with them getting residential care there, that very few of the occupants would have a vehicle even. Is that correct?
Most of the residents, they don't have vehicles usually. Yeah, so only the staffing and the nurse in charge,
Yeah.
which is going to be visiting, and me, okay. And there will be actually 1 vehicle for the facility. So it's going to be parked there for most of the time.
So I assume that once this, assuming this special permit goes forward, it's at that time that you'll be making changes to the residents
Correct.
to outfit the residents for this purpose?
Correct.
Got it. Understood. Any other questions? Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. We will now take testimony in support of this application. Is there any neutral testimony? And testimony in opposition. Okay, are there any questions for staff at this time?
No.
Okay, I assume you don't need to come back up at this time, then? No. No, we're not quite done. We're not quite done.
I would move that we close the public hearing.
Second, Joy?
Jerry?
Okay. Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Ryman Yost?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0.
I would move that we approve special permit 21025.
Second, Ball.
Okay.
Any discussion?
I think this looks like a great project. I think that you have a good plan. I look forward to seeing, a smaller facility like this. I think that's a great idea, to keep that small. I think that's a really niche project, and I think it'll be cool.
I think having had a chance to hear and understand a little bit about the operation, this facility will not have a major impact on the neighborhood, which I was concerned about, but I don't think there'll be any issues with that. So I'm going to support it.
Okay. All right. Jerry?
Okay, this is for the conditional approval of special permit 21025. Again, this is final action on this item unless appealed to the city council within 14 days. Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Ryman Yost?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0.
Okay.
Okay, next item, just a reminder that item 4.2, preliminary plat 21002, is deferred, has been deferred to the August 18th Planning Commission hearing. Okay, for item 4.3 is text amendment 21006, amending various sections of the Lincoln Municipal Code, section 27.02.260, to promote affordable housing in multiple family units as identified on the agenda, and repealing said sections of the Lincoln Municipal Code as hitherto existing. Staff recommendation is for approval. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed?
Yeah, yes. I don't know. I need to disclose that I was at they presented at the Mayor's Neighborhood Roundtable meeting a couple months ago.
Noted.
Okay. Stephanie?
Members of the Commission, Stephanie Rouse with the Planning Department, 555 South 10th Street. This is a text amendment package for affordable housing and multifamily development in the city of Lincoln. It stems from the recent approval of the Lincoln Affordable Housing Coordinated Action Plan that was approved by City Council back in December. One of the recommendations was to take a look at our zoning ordinance and see if there are any barriers to streamlining affordable housing production and housing production in general. Staff met with an internal working group and went through the ordinance and came up with a number of changes as kind of a first round of amendments that we could do to help support affordable housing in the city of Lincoln. And they center around four major areas: parking, height, lot development, and administrative amendments. In regards to the proposed changes for parking, for multifamily dwellings, the ratio would be reduced to 1.5 vehicles per dwelling unit in the R1 through R6. And this is reflective of recent census data for the city of Lincoln that shows that renter households have fewer cars. Almost 60% have one car or less within the city of Lincoln. Also, we would change the parking ratio to 1 car per dwelling unit in the O3 and the B5 zoning district, and remove parking requirements altogether in the O1 district, which is the office district that's adjacent to the B4, which is our downtown zoning district. In regards to height, we're proposing to increase the maximum height allowed in the R1 through R4 districts within the neighborhood design standard area to 45 feet. Elsewhere, it would be increased to 55 feet in all zoning districts, residential zoning districts. And then just to point out, the R1 through R4, that would only be allowed through a planned unit development or a community unit plan. We would also increase the height for all uses in the O3, B2, and B5 districts, with an extra requirement that in the O3 district that for each foot of height above 35 feet, that the building would be set back an additional foot. We've also proposed to add a new definition to our front yards. So we'd have a corner front yard, which would help with reconstructing single-family and two-family homes on corner lots within some of our older districts. Also help with new housing construction with reducing that setback, which is typically 20 to 25 feet down to 10 feet on one of your corner yards. Also, and this relates to the memo that was just passed out in the reconstruction section, we're proposing that in the residential districts that we would remove the 60% cap to allow buildings to be reconstructed if they were damaged in total or destroyed by act of God, or if they're just torn down because they're beyond repair. And then as part of that memo, we're tweaking the language to make it clear that that it can be placed back to its original configuration using the setbacks of the building as it was on the day it was destroyed, and not the setbacks that may have been in place for the zoning district when it was destroyed. So just clarifying, it's the building setback. As far as the administrative amendments, we'd propose adding language to allow the planning director to convert floor area in approved PUDs and use permits to dwelling units, and then in the special permit section, allowing an increase in dwelling units up to 15%. Also, in planned unit developments, the maximum density would be set by city council, and then the final proposed change would be changing all residential uses in the B2 district from conditional to permitted uses. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Stephanie?
I have a couple. Just to make sure that I'm on the same understanding as what was intended. For the corner lot adjustment, it talks about the front facade would be required to have 2 openings. Would those be windows and or doors?
Correct. It matched kind of what we require with our neighborhood design standards today.
I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't requiring, like a door necessarily, that it could be a window. Okay,
Correct.
Awesome. And then, can you tell me, I tried to figure it, but I'm not sure about my calculations here. How many blocks would comprise an acre? Like if they're doing, because I know like an acre is, needed for a CUP. About how much land are we looking at for like a standard city block?
That's a good question. I think it's in the range of maybe 3 or 4 blocks. Steve might have that more readily available.
Steve Hendrickson, the standard city block downtown, original plat 300 by 300 is about 2.5 acres. So about half of a block is give or take about an acre.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure. Okay.
4.84 blocks. I did the math.
That's not one of my strong suits. Okay. Can you give me some examples of B2 and B5 areas, like around town?
So the map in the packet here, the B2 and the B5 areas, they're kind of our regional shopping centers located on kind of major thoroughfares. In the map here, they're the light blue and the dark blue areas.
So something like Edgewood, or I'm trying to think of some others.
Piedmont.
Okay, great. All right, I think that's it.
Any other questions? I do have one question. I missed the briefing, so I'm sure you addressed this at that time, but I wanted to make sure I understand, or can you explain to me the rationale for distinguishing between areas of the city where neighborhood design standards govern and the other areas? So, for example, the core city versus outside of that area, and why we would make a height, why would we require different heights in different areas?
Correct. So the neighborhood design standards governs basically the city limits back in 1950. So it's a lot of the older neighborhoods, very well established neighborhoods. So there was some concern about increasing height all the way up to 55 feet in those older neighborhoods. So we placed the height limit at 45 feet for those areas. But outside of that is some of your more suburban, newer development areas that don't have any existing residences around it. So that would we felt that 55 feet would be more appropriate.
And then I did have a question. I wrote this down and I haven't looked at it again. On the table on page 34 in that packet, get there, sorry. Kind of overwhelmed me. And obviously I read the description, but in essence, we're adding the corner front yard concept across the board, and then adjusting the heights as described. But am I missing anything else on this table?
The other main change, all the asterisks are converting to letters to make it a lot easier to read and navigate that table.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Other questions for Stephanie? All right. So that was testimony from the applicant. Is there any testimony in support?
Good afternoon, members of the Planning Commission. It's an unusual day. I get to appear solely on behalf of myself today, and it's kind of nice. So I am appearing in support of the text changes that planning has proposed here today. I think they've done a great job of finding some areas in the code that can be adjusted to reduce impediments to residential development that won't be detrimental to our community. I think these adjustments are responsive to and supported by changes that we've seen in national and local trends and in our building practices, and I think will help further many of the goals of the comprehensive plan. I appreciate their efforts, their willingness to look at these. I appreciate the fact that going ahead and codifying some of these things will just allow us not to have to continue to ask for waivers for things that have become somewhat standard. So I've found over the last several years, Planning Department has been very responsive to trying to make changes to the code that make things simpler and make development go more smoothly. And I think these are just another great example of that. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Rick Kruger, and I'm president of Kruger Development. I don't have, I believe, any properties that'll be immediately affected by these things, but I think they're a good start. Years ago, after I graduated, I used to draw house plans and plans that now sometimes we refer to as slip-ins, 6plexes, 8plexes, this kind of thing. And I remember very well, and this was back in the mid-70s, when the city came up with this idea that we needed to try and scale back what could be done on those smaller lots. And so how it was done is they changed it from 1 parking stall per dwelling unit to 1.2 per dwelling unit. And all of a sudden, instead of building a 6plex, you're building a 5plex. And of course, that took away values. This is a real positive thing in that it is settling some of the questions that come up, especially in the other districts, not the straight residential districts, the O3 districts and some of those. So the parking changes and the height changes in the corner lot setbacks. I think the corner lot setbacks will help south of downtown in that area when things come forward. So I speak in support of these items. Be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you.
Mr. Kruger, could I get your address, please, for the record?
Yeah, 8200 Cody Drive.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ann Post. I'm an attorney with Baylor Evnen Law Firm, and I am here today on behalf of the Home Builders Association, but to testify in support of these text amendments. We appreciate planning bringing these forward and bringing these suggestions as an effort to look at our zoning code to increase housing affordability in Lincoln. As I've said, this is round one, and we look forward to, first, we appreciate being able to be part of the round one conversation and look forward to continuing that conversation for round two. And so with that, we appreciate this, we appreciate the effort, and we are fully in support of these text amendments. So thank you.
Any other testimony in support? Yes.
Hello. I have some copies of my testimony.
Oh, great. Thank you.
I didn't realize we'd be changing chairpersons, so I apologize for the incorrect
You can call me whatever
address.
you want.
Yeah.
That's all good. Tracy, it works.
Tracy.
Chairperson Edgerton and members of the Planning Commission, I'm here. My name's Casey Ogle. I live at 6039 Meridian Drive, apartment 422 here in Lincoln. And I'm here today on behalf of Collective Impact Lincoln. We are here to support the Affordable Housing Text Amendment package. These changes to Lincoln's zoning code support the development of affordable housing by ensuring that fewer waivers are needed when developing and maintaining affordable housing. By reducing these transaction costs, housing development's more likely to happen and more likely to be affordable. As you know, these changes came from the Affordable Housing Coordinated Action Plan, and we're excited to see the recommendations of the Coordinated Action Plan being implemented. These proposed changes help promote the production of affordable housing by reducing the administrative burden on housing developers. We've heard at CIL continually about the dire need for quality, affordable housing in our city. I'm going to skip over a bit, but the solutions, we know that additional solutions are needed that reduce transaction costs so that development is able to happen at a lower price point. And this includes reducing transaction costs for developers as they navigate the complicated landscape of Lincoln's building and zoning codes. The changes promoted by this ordinance reduce the transaction costs, as I've said, and ensure that developers can make changes to their development as a right under housing and zoning codes. And because they will not have to navigate the complicated approval process for these changes, developers will be more likely to explore new options and development at lower price points. Finally, I just wanted to say, while these changes are important and necessary steps to reduce barriers to affordable housing, incentivizing affordable development by reducing these transaction costs for developers won't produce the number of affordable housing units on its own that we need in the city. So while we support this ordinance, we encourage the city to continue to implement the recommendations of the Affordable Housing Coordinated Action Plan, such as exploring inclusionary housing through a feasibility study, adopting protections for all legal sources of income used for rent, and implementing a periodic proactive internal inspection scheme for rental units. And that's all I have for you today. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other testimony in support? Okay, is there any neutral testimony? And any testimony in opposition? Any additional questions for Stephanie? Okay.
I would move that we close the public hearing. Campbell?
Second, Shear.
Jerry?
Okay. Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Raymond Yost?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0.
I'd also move that we approve text amendment 21006, adjusting all of these requirements as noted in the information provided.
Do you want to include the amendment?
Yes, I didn't consider it an amendment.
The staff revisions?
Yeah, it's a staff revision. That would be included also.
Second, Core?
I think this is a great step forward, and the changes that are being made are going to allow a lot of those lots, especially in the south of downtown area and maybe Everett and some other neighborhoods that have existed that are non-conforming at this time. And this is going to allow a lot of infill and some creative development that will provide more cost-effective housing in some of these areas. So I'm very supportive of everything that's been done with this.
Anyone else?
I was initially hesitant on some of the parking changes, but the data here supports bringing it down to the 1.5, and so I am going to go ahead and support this. I think it's important that we have, the compromise between all parties, and I think that that's what this is really achieving. And I also feel that affordable housing is very important, and so this is one way to kind of get that moving along.
I certainly appreciate that our planning department, our staff, is proactive in working with other folks in our community to put forth these proposed changes, and I am going to support this as well. Jerry?
Okay. This is for the approval of text amendment 21006. Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Ryman Yost?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
And Core?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Moving on to, let's see, okay, but actually before we do that, I'll just remind everyone that item 5.1, change of zone 21024, has been deferred to the August 18th Planning Commission hearings. Moving on to administrative action only, we have item 6.1, which is text amendment 21005 to amend Article 14 Community Unit Plan and Article 15 Additional Use Regulations of the Lancaster County Zoning Regulations and amend Chapter 2 definitions of the Lancaster County subdivision resolution to allow for solar energy conversion systems and all necessary appurtenances within an outlot. Staff recommendation is for approval. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed?
I don't see any. Okay, I think that I will entertain a motion.
I would move that we approve, I would reintroduce the motion from last week that would allow all CUPs that exist in the county now to not have solar panels in their outlots, and that only newly developed CUPs after, and the date would be based upon the county board's approval, then that could go into application, that anybody then looking to buy a lot there would know that they would have the opportunity to have solar panels there, or as an association, they might buy out the outlot and continue to protect themselves. So I think it gives people that are existing out there now a greater privacy effect to the panels, and it just keeps them from having to look at solar panels 300 feet away.
Second. Now, you'll second?
Core.
Tracy seconded that. Just to clarify, your motion to amend, is it, would it reflect the proposed motion to amend that was provided to us this week by the county attorney?
I have some questions for the county attorney.
I am here.
Okay. In your piece, and I have to go back to it, in your draft to us, sorry, got to the wrong one. There is a staff text amendment. Here we go. I want to make sure I'm understanding it right, and that is basically in your section 2.22 outlot, you say on or after the effective date, an outlot within a community unit plan shall mean a parcel of real property be included in a final plat, having access to at least one public street or private roadway, and reserved for agricultural uses, open space, common facilities, and/or a solar energy conversion system and all necessary apertures thereto. So, by that statement, are you giving the protection that I'm seeking to the existing CUPs?
Correct. So if you remember, the original version had the language go retroactive.
Yes.
So this definition would start from the date this will eventually be approved by the county board, and it would go backwards. So any CUP approved however long ago, solar would be included in that definition. It wouldn't have to go through that approval process through you all. And so as we discussed 2 weeks ago now this is only effective, so it would be on or after the future effective date. So say that's today. As of today, if someone files a CUP, now it can include solar, but it doesn't go to any before this date.
Okay. If a CUP is approved, but the final plat has not been presented yet, does just having the CUP approval protect that development?
Yeah, so this definition is in the subdivision regulations, so this would be applicable to that final plat.
Okay. That it would prohibit then that outlot from having solar panels?
Correct.
Okay.
For Tom, are there any in-progress applications that would be affected one way or the other about this change? I'm with Dick in terms of wanting to make sure that people who may be affected but in process have the full knowledge.
Yeah, I was trying to think of which ones I'm working on. No, I do have one CUP, but it's under city jurisdiction.
Okay.
I did want to make sure that all the commissioners did receive the memo email that Steve Henriksen sent out yesterday that had the kind of outlined everything for you
Not sure.
and had the final.
I'm not sure I saw that.
Okay, we can put it on the screen too.
Yeah. So this would be the final language that you would be voting on today. It didn't change.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't
I-
change
I've got
Article.
that, yeah.
Okay. And Article 14 didn't change. It's the same as what was in the staff report.
And so these are just those changes you verbally wanted to introduce last week or 2 weeks ago, just put on paper.
Then I would make that my motion.
So we have a motion to approve as amended.
Correct.
By Dick, seconded by Tracy. Any further discussion?
I think this goes a long way in, so people that purchased and own their property now still have that same expectation, that they already got into. And then going forward, my understanding, and I could be wrong here, is that when people are buying property, that should be disclosed to them that this, could go into an outlot or there's a development in the future. And so it's kind of buyer beware, that should be disclosed to them upon their purchase. And I think that that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, and just as a reminder, unless it's one of those small ones, all large solar facilities will have to go through the special permit process. So even though this language is in there, they'll still have to do all that, put up the sign and follow that process.
Dennis?
So I'm the reason this got delayed, I think, probably. I had a couple reasons why I voted against the motion. I'm going to vote for the motion today, but I also want to make a few comments. I was ready to vote to deny the original application or item as written. I still would find myself able to do that, to deny it. Because for me, there's another issue here that I think our community needs to think about, and that is what is a sustainable community? What is building a sustainable community? And Christy kind of, I think, got to this a little bit last. You were uncertain at how it felt. Had 2 weeks to think about that more, and to me, solar energy conversion systems are part of building sustainable communities. But there's a scale issue here, and we talked about that a little bit 2 weeks ago in terms of what CUPs do right at the fringe of the urban community and into the rural part of the county. And I think you can make arguments that for larger solar energy conversion systems, which could be strung together on a number of CUPs, outlots, they could become sort of industrial in nature. That's not necessarily sustainable in my mind in terms of how I think of sustainable communities in the county. A true solar energy conversion system for a outlot in a CUP would be for that solar system to provide benefit to those adjacent residents. A lot of sustainability issues are very local, small-scale applications, and that's what makes them work. So I do have concern about the fact that we're taking a really great tool that our county has always used with the CUP, and we're adjusting it in a way that maybe, for me anyway, is not exactly appropriate sometimes, or could be. But with what Dick has asked for in terms of 2 weeks ago as an amendment and now a motion, I'm comfortable enough that people who are already living in this situation will have the ability to continue to live the way they thought they were going to be able to live with their building or residence. But anything future obviously has a lot of hoops now that we can go through. So I'm going to vote for it, but I do want to I just think looking down the future, there could be some things that we need to think about.
I agree, that's an important perspective.
Yeah.
Dick?
I also had some concerns when this first came up, because my concern is the CUP was put together to basically allow build-throughs and for us to connect as we went through the city. It's happened out in the southern part of Lincoln, and things have built right through the developments that were there in the county, and new homes have been built as they've developed into subdivisions that had once been acreages, and properties, and so on. So my concern was to make sure not only did the property owners get protection that were already there, but that it preserved our right to get through that area and not have a solid wall of solar panels, that there were ways for us to build through and keep the growth east on the community side.
Anyone else? I will be supporting this text amendment as amended. My primary concern from the very beginning was the retroactivity issue, and that's certainly been resolved. I do really appreciate both perspectives that Dennis and Dick shared, and it will be a continuing conversation in our community. With that, Jerry?
Okay, this is for the approval of text amendment 21005 as amended, as contained, or as presented in the text provided by the county attorney, or the county attorney's office, I should say. Okay, Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Ryman Yost?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
And Core? Yes. Motion carried, 7-0.
At this time, anyone wishing to speak on an item not on the agenda may certainly do so. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Campbell?
Second, Core?
Jerry?
Ball? Yes. Campbell?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Ryman Yost?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
And Core?
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0.
Thank you.